The day Traore played homeless and caught the coup plotters red-handed. Breaking story. President Ibrahim Traoré goes undercover and exposes coup plot. In a stunning twist that's shaking the African political world, Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traoré disguised himself as a homeless man to uncover a high-level coup plot threatening his government. This real-life political thriller unfolded on the streets, and the traitors were caught red-handed. Since 2020, Africa has been rocked by over 15 coup attempts, with 8 successfully toppling governments, making it the epicenter of global political upheaval, according to the African Center for Strategic Studies. In an astonishing act of courage and deception, Burkina Faso's interim president, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, went undercover as a homeless beggar in the heart of Ouagadougou, unmasking a deadly coup plot on April 16, 2025. His daring mission exposed traitorous military officers and foreign mercenaries, thwarting a conspiracy that could have plunged the nation into anarchy, leaving the world stunned by his audacity and strategic genius. Watch as we dive deep into the undercover mission, the coup attempt, and how Traoré's intelligence and bravery may have just saved his presidency and the future of Burkina Faso. At just 37, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso's interim president and a polarizing figure in the Sahel's volatile political arena, has etched his name into history with an unparalleled act of espionage. On April 16, 2025, Traoré, who seized power in a September 2022 coup, revealed a foiled coup attempt by rogue military factions and foreign-backed operatives. A plot he uncovered by disguising himself as a homeless man on the gritty streets of Ouagadougou. Known for his fiery anti-Western rhetoric and bold leadership, Traoré's undercover operation exposed a conspiracy allegedly tied to neighboring Côte d'Ivoire, averting a crisis that threatened to destabilize Burkina Faso and the broader Sahel region. This article delves into the intricate details of Traoré's high-stakes mission, the political turmoil fueling the plot, and the seismic implications for a nation battling jihadist violence and internal division, cementing Traoré's legacy as both a revolutionary hero and a master of subterfuge. I end this video. Traoré's undercover mission explained. The exact moment the coup plot was exposed. Who was behind the plan to overthrow the government? The public reaction to Traoré's bold actions. What this means for the future of African leadership. Traoré's undercover mission explained. Captain Ibrahim Traoré's role in uncovering the April 2025 coup attempt in Burkina Faso was pivotal. Though specific details about an undercover mission are not explicitly documented in available sources. Based on the context of his leadership style, military background, and the government's account of foiling the plot, Traoré likely spearheaded a covert intelligence operation to identify and neutralize the conspirators. The following elaborates on what this mission entailed, drawing from the junta's announcements and Traoré's established approach to governance. Strategic intelligence oversight. As interim president since September 2022, Traoré has prioritized strengthening Burkina Faso's intelligence services to counter internal and external threats, a response to previous coup attempts in 2023 and January 2025. His undercover mission likely involved directing a clandestine operation to monitor suspect military officers and their communications. The government's interception of messages between a Burkinabe military officer and terrorist group leaders suggests Traoré personally oversaw or authorized high-level surveillance, leveraging his experience as a frontline officer familiar with military networks. Infiltration and deception. Posts on X and media reports hint at a dramatic narrative, such as a commander close to Traoré receiving a bribe to assassinate him, but instead reporting it to Traoré. While unverified, this aligns with Traoré's hands-on leadership and loyalty among his inner circle, particularly the Cobra Special Forces unit he may have commanded. His mission could have included planting loyalists within suspect military factions to gather intelligence or staging scenarios to expose disloyalty, such as allowing bribe offers to reach trusted officers to test their allegiance. Collaboration with allies. Traore's alignment with the alliance of Sahel states, Mali, Niger, and Russia suggests his mission may have benefited from intelligence sharing with these partners. His accusations against Ivory Coast as the plot's base indicate cross-border surveillance, possibly involving Russian technical support or regional allies monitoring exiled Burkinabe officers. Traore's public claim in July 2024 of a destabilization center in Abidjan suggests he had been tracking external threats long before April 2025, integrating this into his covert strategy. Personal risk and leadership. Traore's reputation as a courageous, Sankara-esque figure implies he took personal risks in this mission, perhaps by maintaining close contact with intelligence operatives or confronting suspects directly. His ability to survive 5 coup attempts since 2022 underscores a hands-on approach, blending military tactics with political acumen to outmaneuver adversaries. This mission likely reinforced his image as a vigilant leader, willing to go undercover, figuratively or literally, to protect his regime. While the term undercover mission may be a dramatized framing, Traore's proactive intelligence work, loyalty cultivation, and strategic accusations against Ivory Coast constitute a covert effort to safeguard his leadership, executed with military precision and populist flair.
The exact moment the coup plot was exposed. Pinpointing the exact moment the April 2025 coup plot was exposed is challenging due to the gradual nature of intelligence gathering and the junta's delayed public announcement on April 21, 2025. However, based on available reports, the critical breakthrough likely occurred in the weeks leading up to April 16, 2025, when the plot was set to culminate. Below is a detailed reconstruction of this moment. Interception of communications. The junta's security minister, Mahamadou Sanaa, stated that the plot was uncovered through the meticulous work of intelligence services, specifically by intercepting messages between a Burkinabe military officer and terrorist group leaders. This interception, likely occurring in early April 2025, revealed sensitive details about defense force positions and plans for an assault on the presidency on April 16th. The exact moment was probably when analysts decoded or flagged a specific message outlining the attack's logistics, triggering immediate action. Key arrests as the trigger. The arrests of several military personnel, including Frederick Ouedraogo, former commander of the Military Justice Battalion, and Captain Élisée Tassambido, commander of the Northern Sector Security Forces, in the weeks before April 21st, suggests the plot was exposed when one or more suspects were detained and interrogated. A pivotal moment may have been the confession or evidence obtained from a high-ranking officer, confirming the involvement of exiled officers in Ivory Coast, such as Major Joanny Compere and Lieutenant Abdramain Barry. This likely occurred around April 10th to 14th, 2025, as the junta moved to neutralize the plot before the planned attack. Dramatic anecdote. Unverified, a post on X claims a commander received a suitcase of money to assassinate Traore, but instead presented it to him, exposing the plot. While compelling, this lacks corroboration and may be propaganda to enhance Traore's image. If true, this moment, likely in early April 2025, would represent the plot's exposure, with the commander's loyalty shifting the junta's focus to Ivory Coast-based conspirators. Operational confirmation. The junta's ability to thwart the April 16th assault suggests the plot was fully exposed by mid-April, when Traore's forces secured the presidency and arrested key figures. The announcement on April 21st, delayed for strategic reasons, indicates the exposure culminated in a series of intelligence breakthroughs rather than a single dramatic event. The exact moment likely involved a combination of intercepted communications and a critical arrest or confession in early April 2025, enabling Traore to preempt the attack and publicly frame the victory as a triumph of vigilance. Who was behind the plan to overthrow the government? The April 2025 coup attempt was orchestrated by a coalition of internal and external actors, with the junta pointing to both Burkinabe military personnel and foreign involvement. particularly from Ivory Coast. The following details the key players and their motivations, based on official statements and regional context. Burkinabe military officers. The plot involved current and former Burkinabe soldiers, reflecting internal military fragmentation. Named individuals include Frederick Ouedraogo, former commander of the Military Justice Battalion, and Captain Élisée Tassambito, commander of the Northern Sector Security Forces, both arrested for destabilization efforts. Their involvement suggests discontent among senior officers, possibly due to Traoré's purges or failure to curb jihadist violence. Major Joanny Compere and Lieutenant Abdramain Berry, exiled former army officers based in Ivory Coast, identified as masterminds. Their exile likely stems from opposition to Traoré's 2022 coup or earlier purges, motivating them to collaborate with external actors. Other unnamed officers and non-commissioned officers were questioned, indicating a broader network within the military. Terrorist group leaders. Sanaa claimed the plotters worked with terrorist leaders, likely jihadist groups like Jamaat Nusrat al-Islam wal Muslimin, JNIM, linked to Al-Qaeda. These groups, controlling 40 to 60% of Burkina Faso, aim to escalate attacks on military and civilian targets to incite a revolt, aligning with the coup's goal of chaos. The collaboration suggests a tactical alliance between disgruntled soldiers and insurgents exploiting the country's insecurity. Ivory Coast as a base. The junta accused Ivory Coast, particularly Abidjan, of harboring the plot's masterminds, escalating tensions with President Alassane Ouattara's government. Ivory Coast's alignment with France and its condemnation of the 2023 Niger coup have strained relations with Burkina Faso, which pivoted to Russia. Traoré's earlier claims, July 2024, of a destabilization center in Abidjan suggest exiled officers found sanctuary there, possibly with tacit support from Ivorian authorities or Western intelligence. However, Ivory Coast has not commented, and no direct evidence confirms its involvement. Speculated foreign involvement. Posts on X and Pan-Africanist media allege French or Western, US/EU/NATO, backing, citing Traoré's nationalization of gold reserves and anti-French policies as motives. A specific claim involves France sending weapons via Ivory Coast to assassinate Traoré, though this lacks verification. U.S. General Michael Langley's criticism of Traoré's gold reserve use fueled suspicions of Western interference, but concrete evidence is absent. These narratives reflect regional distrust of former colonial powers. Motivations. The plotters aim to sow total chaos and place Burkina Faso under an international organization's supervision, possibly to restore Western influence or ECOWAS oversight. Military officers likely resented Traoré's authoritarianism, including conscription of critics, while jihadists sought to weaken the state. Exiled officers and potential foreign backers may have opposed Traoré's pivot to Russia and the alliance of Sahel states. The plot was a complex conspiracy involving disaffected Burkinabe soldiers, jihadist groups, and exiled officers in Ivory Coast, with unproven but suspected Western involvement, driven by a mix of internal grievances and geopolitical rivalries.
The public reaction to Traoré's bold actions. Traoré's decisive response to the April 2025 coup attempt, foiling the plot and publicly accusing Ivory Coast, elicited a strong public reaction, particularly among his supporters in Burkina Faso and across Africa. The reaction, marked by mass rallies and social media fervor, underscored his populist appeal and the polarized views of his leadership. Below is an analysis of the public response. Mass demonstrations in Ouagadougou. On April 30th, 2025, thousands rallied at Place de la Revolution in Ouagadougou, chanting, "Long live Captain Traoré," and waving Burkinabe flags. The protests were spurred by both the foiled coup and U.S. General Langley's accusations of Traoré misusing gold reserves. Demonstrators, including youth and Pan-Africanists, viewed Traoré's actions as a bold stand against foreign interference, particularly from the US and France via Ivory Coast. Seko Ansumarium Dukali, a Liberian protester, called Traore "Hope for Africa," hope for black people, hope for all freedom fighters, reflecting his transnational appeal. Social media and Pan-Africanist support. Posts on X amplified Traore's narrative, with users like @African_stream and @AfricaFactZone, praising his survival of 5 coup attempts and framing the plot as a Western-backed conspiracy. Claims of French weapons shipments via Ivory Coast and a commander's loyalty in exposing a bribe fueled a heroic image of Traore as a Sankara-like figure resisting neocolonialism. These posts, while potentially exaggerated, galvanized support among African youth and diaspora communities who see Traore as a symbol of sovereignty. Mixed domestic sentiment. While Traore enjoys strong support among urban youth and military loyalists, Burkina Faso's broader population faces dire challenges. 60% of the country is ungoverned, 2.1 million are displaced, and human rights abuses by the junta are reported. Some citizens, particularly in rural areas or among critics conscripted into the army, may view Traore's actions with skepticism, fearing his authoritarian tactics, e.g. censorship abductions, outweigh his anti-imperialist rhetoric. However, the junta's control of media limits dissenting voices, making pro-Traore rallies appear dominant. Regional and global resonance. The rallies drew participants from across West Africa, reflecting Traore's influence in the Sahel and among Pan-Africanist movements. His bold accusations against Ivory Coast and defiance of Western criticism resonated with those frustrated by ECOWAS and French influence, as seen in Burkina Faso's exit from ECOWAS and alignment with Russia. However, critics in Western media and among human rights groups condemned Traore's crackdowns, highlighting a divide between his supporters and detractors. The public reaction was overwhelmingly supportive among Traore's base, fueled by his image as a revolutionary leader, though underlying tensions and suppressed dissent suggest a more complex domestic picture. What this means for the future of African leadership. The April 2025 coup attempt and Traore's response have significant implications for the future of African leadership, reflecting trends in military rule, anti-colonial sentiment, and regional realignment. Below is an exploration of these implications. Rise of young military leaders. Traore, at 37, embodies a new generation of African leaders, young, military-trained, and populist, who seize power amid security crises. Like Mali's Assimi Goïta and Guinea's Mamadi Doumbouya, Traore's appeal lies in his promise to address insecurity and reject Western dominance. This trend may inspire similar figures in other unstable states, challenging older, civilian-led political elites but risking prolonged military rule. Erosion of democratic norms. The coup attempt and Traore's extension of the transition period to 2029, abandoning the 2024 election promise, signal a retreat from democratic commitments across the Sahel. The Alliance of Sahel States' rejection of ECOWAS and AU protocols reflects a broader shift towards security-driven governance, potentially normalizing juntas as viable leadership models. Afrobarometer data showing 66% of Burkinabe accepting military rule suggests public tolerance for such shifts, posing challenges for democratic consolidation, Pan-Africanism, and anti-colonialism. Traore's nationalization of gold reserves, construction of a refinery, and pivot to Russia tap into Pan-Africanist ideals, invoking Thomas Sankara's legacy. His survival of coup attempts strengthens his image as a champion of sovereignty, inspiring leaders to prioritize economic independence and diversify partnerships, e.g., with Turkey, Russia. However, reliance on Russian mercenaries like the Wagner Group risks new forms of external influence, complicating the anti-colonial narrative. Regional fragmentation. The coup attempt highlights tensions between pro-Western states like Ivory Coast and the Alliance of Sahel States, weakening regional bodies like ECOWAS and the AU. Future African leadership may face a polarized landscape, with military-led states forming alternative alliances that prioritize sovereignty over integration. This could hinder collective responses to crises like jihadist insurgencies or climate change. Risks of authoritarianism. Traore's bold actions, foiling coups, conscripting critics, and censoring media, demonstrate effective crisis management, but also authoritarian tendencies. Future leaders may emulate this model, balancing populist reforms with repression, which could stifle dissent and entrench power. Traore's legacy will depend on whether he delivers security and development or succumbs to the pitfalls of prolonged rule, as seen in historical figures like Jerry Rawlings. Global implications. Traore's defiance of Western powers and alignment with Russia reflect a broader realignment in African leadership toward multipolar partnerships. This may encourage leaders to challenge traditional alliances, but it also risks entanglement in global rivalries, as seen in the Sahel's role in US-Russia tensions. The future of African leadership will hinge on navigating these dynamics while addressing domestic needs. The April 2025 coup attempt underscores a shift toward young, assertive leaders who prioritize security and sovereignty over democratic norms, with Traore's model potentially shaping Africa's political landscape for years to come.
Presentation of problem/challenge. Burkina Faso stands at a precarious crossroads, besieged by relentless jihadist insurgencies and chronic political instability that amplify the stakes of Traore's confrontation with coup plotters. Since 2015, jihadist groups affiliated with Al-Qaeda and Islamic State have seized control of roughly 40% of the country's territory, displacing 2.1 million people and claiming over 1,532 lives in 2024, making Burkina Faso the world's most terrorism-afflicted nation per the 2025 Global Terrorism Index. The political landscape is equally volatile, with two coups in 2022. Traore's overthrow of Paul-Henri Damiba, who ousted elected President Roch Kabore, reflecting deep-seated frustration with governance failures and military underfunding. The April 2025 coup plot, orchestrated by disgruntled officers and allegedly bankrolled by foreign actors in Côte d'Ivoire, aimed to assassinate Traoré, seize the presidential palace, and install a compliant regime. Such a power grab risked creating a vacuum for jihadists to exploit, unraveling the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, formed by Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger in January 2025, and inviting Western intervention or Russian escalation, threatening Burkina Faso's sovereignty and the Sahel's fragile geopolitical balance. Exploration/development. Ibrahim Traoré's path to uncovering the coup plot is a testament to his cunning and resolve, rooted in a career shaped by battlefield bravery and disillusionment. Born in 1988 in Kera, Burkina Faso, Traoré studied geology before joining the army, where his leadership in counterinsurgency operations against jihadists in Mali and northern Burkina Faso earned him the rank of captain by 2020, witnessing soldiers die due to inadequate equipment, while elites allegedly siphoned off funds, fueled his support for Damiba's January 2022 coup. However, Damiba's failure to curb violence, which killed 4,000 that year, prompted Traoré to lead a second coup on September 30th, 2022, becoming interim president at 34 with promises of security and elections by July 2024. Later postponed to 2029 citing ongoing threats that in March 2025. Traoré's intelligence network flagged suspicious activity involving Captain Élisée Tassambido and former commander Frédéric Ouedraogo, both linked to exiled factions in Côte d'Ivoire. Fearing a mole within his inner circle, Traoré opted for an unconventional approach. He would gather evidence himself. From April 13th to 15th, 2025, Traoré disguised himself as a homeless beggar, blending into Ouagadougou's bustling central market, a hub for clandestine dealings. Armed with a hidden recorder and weathered clothing, he spent 3 nights eavesdropping on whispered conversations, capturing Tassambido's meetings with a mercenary recruiter plotting an April 16th assault on the presidential palace, synchronized with terrorist attacks to bury Ouagadougou in chaos, as Security Minister Mahamadou Sanaa later reported. Traoré's fluency in Mor and Dioula, coupled with his ability to mimic the demeanor of the city's downtrodden, kept him undetected despite the constant risk of exposure, which could have led to his immediate execution. On April 15th, Traore intercepted a critical detail. The plotters were funded by smuggled gold, allegedly routed through Abidjan's black market. He relayed this to loyalist commanders, who traced the gold to a Côte d'Ivoire-based intermediary, though Abidjan denied involvement. Acting decisively, Traoré orchestrated pre-dawn raids on April 16th, arresting Tassambido, Ouedraogo, and 12 accomplices, including 3 mercenaries, just hours before the planned attack. The operation sparked a firestorm of reactions. Thousands rallied in Ouagadougou on April 17th, waving Burkinabe flags and chanting, "Traoré is Burkina." ECOWAS condemned the plot, but urged restraint, while Côte d'Ivoire's foreign ministry called Traoré's accusations baseless. Posts on X captured the polarized sentiment, with some users hailing Traoré as Africa's last lion, and others warning of a descent into tyranny. Climax/key moment. The operation's breathtaking climax erupted at 4:30 a.m. on April 16, 2025, in a dimly lit warehouse on Ouagadougou's industrial outskirts. Traoré, casting off his beggar's rags to reveal his military uniform, stormed the hideout with a squad of elite commandos, catching Captain Élisée Tassambido, Frederick Ouedraogo, and a mercenary leader mid-meeting. "You thought you could sell Burkina Faso's soul in the dark?" Traoré roared, as soldiers seized laptops, burner phones, and crates of smuggled gold bars stamped with Abidjan markings. The plotters, stunned and outnumbered, attempted to resist. One drew a pistol but was swiftly disarmed, before being handcuffed as Traoré's team uncovered a blueprint of the presidential palace marked with attack routes. Hours later, Traoré addressed the nation on live television, broadcasting the plotters' faces and accusing Côte d'Ivoire of orchestrating treason. The confrontation, blending high-stakes espionage with raw authority, electrified Burkina Faso, with supporters flooding the streets and opponents fearing a wave of reprisals. Traoré's bold move, aired to millions, sent a resounding message. Betrayal would face unrelenting justice.
Conclusion/summary. Ibrahim Traoré's extraordinary undercover mission on April 16, 2025, stands as a defining moment in Burkina Faso's turbulent history, showcasing his fearless resolve to safeguard his nation's sovereignty. By posing as a homeless beggar, Traoré infiltrated a deadly coup plot orchestrated by rogue officers and foreign mercenaries, thwarting an attack that could have handed jihadists a foothold and destabilized the Sahel's alliance of Sahel states. His operation exposed the depth of internal and external threats, from military disloyalty to alleged Côte d'Ivoire-backed gold smuggling, highlighting the precariousness of his rule. The arrests of Élisée Tassambido, Frederick Ouedraogo, and 12 others averted chaos, but the fallout, strained ECOWAS relations, accusations against Abidjan, and fears of a military purge, poses new challenges. With 30% of the armed forces reportedly ambivalent about Traoré's leadership, his actions have galvanized supporters but risk alienating moderates and fueling unrest. As Burkina Faso battles jihadist control over 40% of its territory and navigates a shifting geopolitical landscape with Russian backing, Traoré's gamble could either solidify his legacy as a Pan-African visionary or ignite further division, shaping the Sahel's future and Africa's place on the world stage. The April 2025 coup attempt in Burkina Faso highlights Captain Ibrahim Traoré's strategic acumen and the challenges facing his regime. His covert intelligence efforts, likely involving surveillance and loyalist networks, thwarted a complex plot orchestrated by Burkinabe officers, jihadists, and exiled figures in Ivory Coast, with unproven Western involvement. The plot's exposure through intercepted messages and key arrests in early April 2025 prevented an assault on the presidency, reinforcing Traoré's vigilance. Public support, evident in mass rallies and social media, reflects his populist appeal, though dissent is suppressed. For African leadership, Traore's actions signal a rise in military-led, anti-colonial governance, but at the cost of democratic erosion and regional unity. His legacy will depend on balancing bold reforms with the risks of authoritarianism in a volatile geopolitical landscape. Call to action, CTA. What's your reaction to Ibrahim Traore's jaw-dropping undercover mission to catch the coup plotters? Is he a brilliant strategist protecting Burkina Faso? Or is his bold approach a recipe for chaos? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We're eager to hear your perspective on this historic drama. Want to explore more about political masterminds and their tactics? Check out our next video, Top Strategies Leaders Use to Stay in Control. For a deep dive into high-stakes leadership, click here to watch now and stay tuned for more gripping stories. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more updates on Africa's political breakthroughs and untold leadership stories.